Hi everyone, my name is Cassie and welcome to my channel, Bookish 4 Eyes. This is my June reading wrap-up. I managed to read 10 books. 2 of them I read like at the end of May, so technically I only read 8 books. And also I read a few different graphic novels, but I will talk about those in a different video just because I feel like this video would just get way out of control. So before I ramble on anymore, let's get right to it. The very first book that I read is called Swimming Lessons by Claire Fuller, and I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. Basically, this book is about a family where the wife ends up leaving and the husband is left with their 2 daughters. Each chapter is different because one chapter takes place in the present day and another is one of the letters that she wrote. So before she left her family, she put a bunch of letters into different books in their home. And as time goes on, I guess these letters are found, or I guess they're found. I'm not even sure. Anyways, but she writes about their history of how her and this man met, how they started their family, how they got married, all of that sort of things. And I enjoyed the letters because I liked I was genuinely interested in how their relationship started, and I was genuinely interested in like the complexity of it all. I did not like the present day stuff just because it just wasn't very captivating. There wasn't much going on. Basically the man thought he saw his wife walking down the street one day and they were kind of all trying to figure out whether that actually happened or not. It felt a little long for me, but I really enjoyed the letter bits of the book, so I think that kind of made up for it overall. But it was a decent read, and if it sounds like something you'd be interested in, definitely give it a go. The next book that I read is called The Chalk Man by C.J. Tudor, and I gave that book 4 out of 5 stars. This one was a thriller, and I genuinely really enjoyed it. It actually reminded me a bit of Stephen King and his book It, and I've heard that comparison before, so I can definitely relate to that because I felt like the book was written kind of in the same way, and I think it's mainly because the main characters are a group of kids, primarily Eddie, and him and his friends have the substitute teacher who, you know, they're kind of friends with. And they're having all their little kid fun and they get into fights with other kids, and it's just, you know, typical kid stuff. And then they start doing these Chalkman drawings to send a message to one another, and then those Chalkman drawings turn up in random spots where those kids didn't leave them, so things get kind of crazy. And basically, to sum it up, there is a body that's found, and they find it because of these Chalkman drawings, and they don't know what happened. And many years later, when they're adults, they still kind of don't really know what went on and what happened. So it's just kind of like It, but shorter, and I found the whole thing pretty enjoyable to read. I never felt bored. I was kind of just enjoying the journey through the book. The ending wasn't crazy shocking or anything, but overall I thought it was a pretty decent thriller. The next book that I read is called Sing Unburied Sing by Jesmyn Ward, and I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I've heard mixed reviews before picking up this book, so I was a little bit nervous about how I was going to enjoy it, but overall I thought it was a good read. And I guess I was kind of prepared for that magical realism that was happening. Basically, this is about the main character is Jojo, and he's 13 years old. He lives with his mom and his sister, and their dad is incarcerated, so they have to pick up and drive to the prison where he is at and pick him up because he's being released. And during that car journey, and majority of it takes during the car journey, he kind of starts seeing ghosts of people and just these visions. I don't know, I guess that's what they are. And you get a glimpse into his family. His mom has a bit of a drug problem, and basically it's him, his mom, his sister, and his mom's friend who are all going on this journey together. They end up stopping in some random man's house and to get drugs and things like that. And throughout this whole thing, he ends up seeing visions of people, or ghosts I should say, and he kind of gets to know a little bit more about his past and a little bit more about his family. So overall, it was just a very unique read, just because most books I read don't have that magical realism aspect to it. There's no ghosts that the characters are seeing and interacting with, so that was really different, and I enjoyed the writing overall. I never felt like I was lost or confused about what was happening, so I enjoyed it. And I also thought it was a pretty quick read too, so it's a great book. The next book that I read is called Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris, and I gave that book 4 out of 5 stars. This was a thriller that I was really looking forward to reading, and it honestly didn't disappoint. Basically, this is about a couple, Jack and Grace, and they seem like the absolutely perfect couple from the outside. Their friends come over to visit them. They're always so amazed how beautiful their relationship is, how they get along so well, how it's just perfect and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. However, you start seeing that things aren't as perfect as everyone seems to think, and it's actually quite terrifying, I have to say. A lot of the times I was just genuinely just uncomfortable, and it was pretty twisted, let's just say that. I don't want to spoil anything just because it's a great read, but when I first started it, I was really worried about how it was going to end and whether I was going to be happy with the ending or not, and actually I was very satisfied with the ending. So if you're the kind of person who wants to be happy with how things end up, I would recommend this book because I was genuinely pleased with it and I felt like it did exactly what I would have wanted it to do. So overall, a great read. The next book that I read is a YA novel. It's called Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi, and I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars, but I think I was a little bit generous with it. Basically, this is about Penny, who's going away to college, and she ends up meeting a guy named Sam through one of her roommates, and her and Sam start texting each other, and that's basically how their whole relationship starts. They're just texting, and through text they're able to get to know one another a little bit better and share their personal like hopes and dreams and things like that. That's pretty much it. I have heard some things about it just because I was curious to see what others thought. My main thing is I thought it was a good read if you're looking for kind of a fluffy, romancy YA novel, and that's honestly what it was, and I didn't really expect anything more from it. The thing that I found really annoying with it was that I felt like the whole, I felt like Penny's expectations of who Sam was and how he was supposed to act were very low. So, for example, if he would do something nice, like a regular normal person would do, she would go out of her way to say how amazing he was and how incredible he was, though in my opinion he didn't do anything special. And I just don't like it when people get so much credit for just being a decent human being. So in that sense I was a little disappointed just because that relationship felt very surface level, and I also didn't enjoy how she constantly commented on how hot he was, and I felt like that was the main attraction, the main sort of thing, that she was just attracted to his looks, and I don't know, to me that just felt very shallow. But you know, as with romance novels, that's not entirely surprising, so do with that what you will. The next book that I read is called The Beloveds by Maureen Lindley, and I actually did a full book review and I will link it up there so you can check it out if you'd like, and I enjoyed this book. It was a pretty interesting read. It felt kind of gothic and a little old school, like it felt like something written like a few years back, but it was overall a pretty neat read. Basically this is about 2 sisters, Betty and Gloria. Betty is not a beloved, Gloria is the beloved, so everything always goes Gloria's way and Betty is going to stop it. When their mother passes away, they have this house that Gloria has always been kind of, you know, didn't have any special feelings for it. But Betty has always been obsessing over that house and she's always wanted to live there. And the mother leaves the house in her will to Gloria and Gloria's husband, and Betty is devastated. So she's plotting a way to get the house from them. And she's willing to do whatever it takes. So there you have it. That sounds pretty interesting. Definitely give it a go. The next book that I read is called The Perfect Mother by Amy Malloy, and I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. I had decent expectations going into this book because I've heard good things. Unfortunately, it just didn't pack a punch like I was hoping it would. Basically, this is about a mother who decides to go out with a group of her mom friends, and she leaves her baby with a babysitter. However, the baby ends up getting kidnapped and no one knows what happened, and everyone's kind of suspecting her, and no one really knows what to think, and there's a bunch of backstory of that main character that unravels. My big disappointment was the ending felt very rushed and not very well thought out. It feels like it kind of comes out of the blue, and there's not really much depth or explanation to it. So while it works, I didn't feel like overall it just tied into the whole story very well. It felt like the whole story was about this one thing, and the ending was just this random thing that happened. So I don't know, I wasn't very blown away by it, but I thought it was an okay thriller, and I got through it pretty quickly, so if that's the kind of book that you're looking for, that might work out. The next book that I read is called Providence by Carolyn Kepnes, and I ended up giving this book 2 out of 5 stars, and I have a full review of this book. I'll link it above there so you can check it out if you're interested. Basically, I was very disappointed with this book, and I'm just gonna sum it up after having some time to think about it. That if you enjoyed her other books, You or Hidden Bodies, but I'm guessing you read both of these, you probably won't enjoy this one because it's completely different. It just feels so surface level, very shallow. The relationship in this book doesn't really work out, and I don't know. To me, it was not like her other books, and that was why I was disappointed. Maybe if you just pick this one up randomly, not having read any of her other books, you might enjoy it. I don't know. It's best if you pick it up for yourself if it sounds like something that you're interested in. Basically, it's about 2 friends, and the guy, John, gets kidnapped while Chloe is kind of trying to get over the fact that he's been kidnapped and disappeared. After a few years, he emerges again, but he has this special power that makes it difficult for him to interact with people that he loves, so he must kind of go off and do his own thing. Meanwhile, after like 5+ years of not seeing one another, the feelings for each other are still strong, and they're still trying to make it work somehow. And then he goes into this superhero path, so future books, I'm guessing, will probably build off on that. Anyways, stars. I was very excited for it, but also I'm now very disappointed. Moving on. The next book that I read is called Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling, and I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars, and this is one of my rereads because I'm looking to reread this series. I really like this book. It's quick, it's wonderful, it's a beautiful introduction to the series, and I just enjoyed rereading it, and there were some things that I had forgotten about, and it just felt good to dig into this world again. These are just such feel-good books. I love them. Last but not least, I read a nonfiction book, and this is called Nothing to Envy: Ordinary Lives in North Korea by Barbara Demick. And I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. Since North Korea is in the news a lot, and you hear a lot about it, and you don't really know what the facts are, and you don't really get a lot of first-hand accounts, I was really curious to read a nonfiction book. This one was very interesting because Barbara actually interviewed a bunch of people who have ran away from North Korea to South Korea and China, and they were able to tell their stories and their experiences. And from that, I felt like I got a pretty good understanding of what their life was like and the kinds of hardships that they had to deal with. Overall, if you're interested in North Korea at all and you want to know how people live their lives there and what their daily life is like, and where they work and how they go to school and all of that, and also what it takes for them to escape from there, definitely give this book a read. It was very interesting and really informative. So that's it for my June reading wrap-up. Please let me know if you read any of these books, and also please let me know if there were some really good books that you managed to read this month. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.